Princess Zara stood at the tall crystal windows of her palace, watching dark ships fill the sky above her homeworld. The enemy fleet looked like angry storm clouds blocking out the stars. Her heart felt heavy as she counted the ships. There were too many to fight. "Daughter, we must talk." Emperor Thane's voice came from behind her. Zara did not turn around. She knew what her father would say, and she did not want to hear it. The Veltharian Empire had ruled this part of space for 1,000 years. Their people were smart and peaceful. They could speak to each other with their minds and built beautiful cities from living crystal. Other worlds looked up to them and asked for their help when troubles came. But the Krillian dominion was different. They were warriors who destroyed everything in their path. They had sharp claws, thick armor-like skin, and hearts full of hate. World after world had fallen to their armies. Now they wanted Veltharis. "The Krillian warlord has made his offer," Emperor Thane said. His voice sounded old and tired. "You will marry his eldest son, Prince Vex. In return, our people will live." Zara finally turned to face her father. She saw the pain in his eyes. This was not what he wanted for her, but he had no choice. "And if I refuse? They will burn every city. They will kill every man, woman, and child. Our empire will become dust and memory." The emperor walked to stand beside his daughter at the window. "I am sorry, my child. I have failed you and our people." Zara looked at the enemy ships again. She had heard stories about Prince Vex. He was cruel and enjoyed making others suffer. He collected trophies from the worlds he conquered. The thought of being his wife made her sick, but what choice did she have? "I understand, father. I will do my duty." The words felt like poison in her mouth. Emperor Thane put his hand on her shoulder. "The ceremony will be in 3 days. The Krillians want to make it a grand show for all the galaxy to see, a symbol of their power." After her father left, Zara remained at the window. She thought about her brother Kale, who worked as a diplomat in the far systems. She wondered if he knew what was happening. She wondered if he was safe. As if her thoughts had called to him, a soft chime told her she had received a message. The communication was encrypted and marked urgent. Zara's hands shook as she opened it. "Sister," Kale's voice said through the crystal, "I pray this message reaches you in time. I have learned terrible things about the Krillians. They have a new weapon, something that can destroy entire planets in seconds, but that is not the worst part." Zara's blood turned cold as she listened. "They plan to use this weapon on Veltharis immediately after your wedding ceremony. The marriage is just a show to make other worlds think they are reasonable. They want to eliminate any chance of future rebellion by making sure no Veltharians survive to remember freedom." The message continued with technical details about the weapon, but Zara could barely hear them. Her sacrifice would mean nothing. Her people would die anyway. She sat down hard in her chair. All her life, she had been taught that duty came before personal happiness. She had accepted that she would marry someone chosen for political reasons, but this was different. This was not duty. This was a lie that would end with genocide. Zara's mind raced. Could she warn her father? Would he believe her? Even if he did, what could they do? The Krillian fleet was too strong. Their own military had said fighting would be suicide. She walked to her private computer and began searching through old laws and treaties. There had to be something, some ancient rule or forgotten alliance that could help them. As the hours passed, her hope faded. The Veltharians had always been peaceful. Their laws were made for diplomacy, not for war. A soft knock at her door interrupted her search. "Enter," she called. Her personal guard, Captain Lisa Chen, stepped inside. Lisa had been Zara's friend since childhood, one of the few people who could speak freely with the princess. "Your Highness, the wedding preparations have begun. The Krillians have sent specific instructions about how everything must be done." Lisa's face showed her disgust. "They want to record everything and broadcast it across the galaxy." "Of course they do." Zara felt anger burning in her chest. "They want everyone to see the proud Veltharians bow down to them." Lisa stepped closer and lowered her voice. "There might be another way. Some of the younger officers have been talking about fighting anyway. They say dying with honor is better than living as slaves. And condemning our entire people to death? No, Lisa. We cannot be so selfish." But even as Zara said the words, she wondered if they were right. Maybe a quick death was better than whatever the Krillians planned. The next morning brought more preparations. Servants fitted Zara for the ceremonial dress she would wear to her wedding. The gown was beautiful but felt like a funeral shroud. She tried to smile and act normal, but inside she felt empty. In the afternoon, Prince Vex arrived with his personal guard. Zara was required to meet him formally and show proper respect. She put on her best diplomatic face and went to the throne room. Prince Vex was everything she had expected and worse. He was tall and covered in the scars that Krillian warriors wore like jewelry. His eyes were cold and cruel. When he looked at her, she felt like prey being examined by a predator. "So you are to be my wife," he said in heavily accented Veltharian. "You are smaller than I expected, but you will serve." Zara kept her voice steady. "I am honored by this alliance between our peoples." Vex laughed, showing sharp teeth. "Alliance? Your people are defeated. This marriage is your surrender ceremony. After we are wed, I will reshape this world into something useful. Your soft people will learn to be proper servants." The casual cruelty in his voice made Zara's hands clench into fists, but she said nothing. She could not afford to make him angry. That night, Zara could not sleep. She stood again at her window, looking at the stars and thinking about her people's future. Somewhere out there was her brother, and maybe other allies who could help. But time was running out. Tomorrow would bring the final preparations. In 2 days, she would marry a monster, and shortly after that, her world would burn. But as she watched the stars, a new light appeared. A small ship moving fast and trailing smoke. It was not Krillian and it was not Veltharian. Someone else had come to her world. Maybe the galaxy still held some surprises. The damaged ship appeared on the edge of Veltharian space, just as the morning sun rose over the Crystal City. It was small and built in a style no one recognized. The vessel sent out distress signals in a strange language that their computers could not translate. Zara watched the reports from the palace command center. Every Veltharian and Krillian ship in the area was focused on wedding preparations. No one seemed to care about one damaged alien vessel. "Let it drift," said Prince Vex when asked about the ship. "If the pilot lives, he can watch our ceremony before he dies." But Zara saw an opportunity. Any change to the current situation might help her people, even a small one. She made a decision that surprised everyone. "Send a rescue ship," she ordered. "Bring the pilot here for medical treatment." "Your Highness," Captain Lisa Chen said quietly, "the Krillians might not approve." "I am still a princess of Veltharis," Zara replied. "We do not let injured travelers die in our space." Prince Vex looked annoyed but did not object. He seemed to think the gesture was pointless and beneath his notice. This was exactly what Zara had hoped for. The rescue team brought the alien pilot to the Palace Medical Center within hours. He was unconscious and badly hurt, but alive. The medical team had never seen anyone like him before. Dr. Kate Morgan, the head physician, gave her report to Zara. "He appears to be mammalian, bipedal, with no obvious natural weapons or armor. His technology is interesting, though. His suit has built-in life support, and his ship shows signs of remarkable engineering, even though it uses materials we consider primitive." "How primitive?" Zara asked. "His ship is built mostly from metal alloys, not crystal or energy matrices like ours. But the design is incredibly efficient. Whoever his people are, they know how to do a lot with very little." Zara studied the unconscious alien through the medical bay window. He looked fragile compared to both Veltharians and Krillians. His skin was pale and his body had no natural armor. Yet something about him seemed different from other species she had met. Even unconscious, he looked alert somehow, as if his mind was still working. "How long until he wakes up?" she asked. "Soon, I think. His healing rate is faster than expected." Zara decided to wait. She dismissed her guards and sat beside the medical bed. If this alien was going to be of any help, she needed to speak with him alone first. While she waited, reports came in about the wedding preparations. Krillian soldiers were setting up recording equipment throughout the city. They wanted every citizen to watch their princess surrender to an enemy. The ceremony would be broadcast across the galaxy as proof of Krillian power. Prince Vex spent his time touring the city with his guards, making lists of changes he planned to make. He talked about tearing down the Crystal Gardens and building military training grounds. He wanted to turn the peaceful libraries into weapon factories. "Your people are too soft," he told Emperor Thane during dinner. "After our marriage, I will fix that problem. Work camps will teach them discipline." Zara felt sick listening to these plans, but she kept her expression neutral. She could not let Vex know how much his words hurt her. Late in the evening, the alien pilot finally opened his eyes. Zara was still sitting beside his bed, reading reports on her tablet. When she looked up, she found herself staring into eyes that were alert and intelligent. The alien tried to sit up, winced with pain, then looked around the medical bay. His gaze settled on Zara, and he seemed to understand immediately that she was important. "Where am I?" he asked in his own language. Zara activated a translation device. The computer had been working on his language since they rescued him. "You are on Veltharis in the Palace Medical Center. I am Princess Zara. You were injured when we found your ship." The alien nodded slowly. "Thank you for saving me. My name is Jake Murphy. I am human from a planet called Earth." "Human." Zara repeated the word. She had never heard of this species before. "What brought you to our space, Jake Murphy?" Jake's expression grew serious. "I was scouting ahead of our main fleet. We received reports that the Krillians were expanding toward human territory. My job was to gather information about their movements." Zara felt a spark of hope. "Your people are fighting the Krillians?" "For about 8 months now. They attacked one of our colony worlds without warning. We have been pushing them back ever since." Jake studied her face carefully. "But from what I saw when they rescued me, it looks like they have already conquered this world." "Not yet," Zara said quietly. "But soon. I am to marry Prince Vex tomorrow to prevent them from destroying our cities." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Do you believe they will keep their word after the marriage?" Zara hesitated. She had not told anyone except Lisa about her brother's message. But something about this human made her want to trust him. Maybe it was because he was the first person she had met who was actively fighting the Krillians. "No," she admitted. "I have reason to believe they plan to destroy us anyway immediately after the ceremony." Jake nodded as if this did not surprise him. "That matches their pattern on other worlds. They make false promises to prevent resistance, then eliminate everyone who might remember freedom. You have seen this before? Too many times. The Krillians think in very simple terms: total conquest or total destruction. They do not understand compromise or mercy." Zara felt tears in her eyes. "Then my people are doomed no matter what I do." "Maybe not." Jake struggled to sit up straighter in bed. "How much do you know about human military tactics?" "Nothing. We had never heard of humans until today." Jake smiled, and for the first time since the Krillian fleet arrived, Zara felt a small hint of hope. "Then you are in for some surprises. Humans fight wars very differently than most species. We have had to. We are not naturally strong or fast or armored like the Krillians, so we learn to be smart and unpredictable. Are you saying you could help us fight them?" "I am saying that if your people are willing to try something completely different, you might have a chance. But it would require canceling your wedding to Prince Vex." Zara laughed bitterly. "That is impossible. The marriage contract has already been signed. Breaking it would give the Krillians an excuse to attack immediately." Jake was quiet for several minutes thinking. Then he asked, "What exactly do your marriage laws say? Are there any exceptions or alternatives?" "Why do you ask?" "Because humans have learned that every rule has loopholes if you look hard enough. And sometimes the best way to win is to change the game entirely." Zara felt her heart beating faster. "There is one ancient law. If a princess believes her chosen husband is unworthy, she may demand that he prove himself in combat against a champion of her choice." "Perfect. I volunteer to be your champion." "You?" Zara looked at the injured human in the medical bed. "Jake, you can barely sit up. Prince Vex is a trained Krillian warrior. Princess, let me tell you something about humans. We are very good at winning fights we are supposed to lose." For the first time in days, Zara smiled. The next morning, Princess Zara walked into the throne room where both courts had gathered for the final wedding preparations. Her father sat on his crystal throne looking older than his years. Prince Vex stood nearby with his Krillian guards, already wearing his ceremonial armor. Jake Murphy walked beside her, still pale from his injuries but moving steadily. Dr. Morgan had worked through the night to heal his worst wounds. He wore simple clothes borrowed from the palace staff, looking very small next to the armed warriors in the room. "Father," Zara announced in a clear voice, "I invoke the ancient right of trial by combat. I challenge Prince Vex to prove his worthiness as my husband." The throne room erupted in shocked voices. Emperor Thane stood up quickly, his face full of alarm. "Daughter, what are you doing?" Prince Vex laughed loudly. "The little princess wants to play games? Very well. Who is your champion, girl? One of your crystal soldiers?" "I choose Jake Murphy of Earth to be my champion." The laughter stopped. Prince Vex looked at the small human with confusion and growing anger. This weak creature? You insult me. The law is clear, Zara said, holding up an ancient text. Any princess may demand trial by combat if she questions her suitor's worth. The challenge has been made and witnessed. Emperor Thane's face was pale. Zara, please reconsider. This is madness. But the Krillian warlord, Prince Vex's father, held up a clawed hand for silence. He had been studying Jake with interest. The law exists in our records, too. We conquered many worlds that had similar customs. The challenge is valid. Father, Prince Vex growled, I could crush this tiny alien with one hand. Then do it, the warlord replied. Show everyone in the galaxy how Krillian strength defeats all enemies. It will make good propaganda. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly to both leaders. I accept the terms of combat. When and where? Prince Vex's eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. Now, in the Nexus Arena. I choose the battlefield conditions. The Nexus Arena was the pride of Veltharian technology. The crystal structure could create any environment using hard light and force fields. It was used for sports and training, but never before for a fight to the death. Within an hour, thousands of Veltharians and hundreds of Krillian soldiers had gathered in the arena seats. The event was being broadcast across the galaxy as planned, but now it would show something very different than a simple wedding. Princess Zara stood in the royal viewing box, her heart pounding with fear. Jake had spoken confidently about human fighting abilities, but she had never seen him in action. Prince Vex was twice his size and covered in natural armor. Are you certain about this? Captain Lisa Chen whispered to her. No, Zara admitted, but it is our only chance. In the arena preparation area, Jake was checking the basic equipment he had requested. Simple tools, nothing that looked like weapons to untrained eyes. He had asked for rope, metal spikes, a small hammer, and some chemical compounds from the medical supplies. Dr. Morgan had protested giving him the chemicals. These could be dangerous if mixed incorrectly. I know, Jake had replied. That is the point. Prince Vex entered the arena wearing full battle armor and carrying traditional Krillian weapons. He looked like a walking tank ready to crush anything in his path. The crowd gasped at his impressive appearance. Jake walked out wearing light clothing and carrying a small bag of supplies. Next to the Krillian prince, he looked like a child with toys. Choose your battlefield, Jake called out. Prince Vex smiled cruelly. Volcanic highlands. High heat, unstable ground, poisonous gases. Let us see how long the little human survives. The arena shimmered and transformed. The floor became rough volcanic rock with steaming vents and pools of lava scattered around. The air filled with heat and the smell of sulfur. Most species would find the environment uncomfortable or dangerous. Krillians thrived in such conditions. Begin, announced the arena controller. Prince Vex charged immediately, moving with surprising speed for his size. His plan was simple. Crush the human quickly before he could think of any tricks. But Jake was no longer where he had been standing. He had rolled aside and was already moving toward one of the larger volcanic vents. Prince Vex followed, swinging his massive war club. The club smashed into rock where Jake had been a second before. Jake continued to move, never staying in one place long enough for the Krillian to pin him down. He seemed to be studying the environment while he ran. Stop running, coward, Prince Vex roared. Fight me. Jake finally stopped near a cluster of steam vents. Gladly. But instead of attacking directly, Jake pulled out his small hammer and metal spikes. He began driving the spikes into cracks in the volcanic rock around the vents. The watching crowd was confused. What was he doing? Prince Vex charged again, and again Jake moved at the last second. But this time he left something behind. A thin rope stretched between two of the metal spikes, almost invisible in the steamy air. The Krillian prince's foot caught the rope and he stumbled forward. Jake had calculated the angle perfectly. Prince Vex fell face first toward one of the larger steam vents. The prince caught himself at the last moment, but now he was angry instead of confident. Cheap tricks will not save you, human. Actually, they will, Jake replied. He was mixing chemicals from his medical supplies, creating a paste that he spread on more metal spikes. Humans learned long ago that winning is more important than looking impressive while you do it. For the next several minutes, Jake turned the battlefield into a maze of traps. He used the volcanic environment against Prince Vex, triggering small rock slides and redirecting steam vents. Every time the Krillian tried to use his strength, Jake made sure that strength worked against him. The most impressive moment came when Prince Vex tried to corner Jake near a lava pool. Jake had been waiting for this. He threw one of his chemical-coated spikes into the lava, where it created a reaction that sent a fountain of molten rock shooting upward. Prince Vex had to dive aside to avoid being burned. When he landed, he found himself in a shallow pit that Jake had been carefully herding him toward. The walls were too steep for him to climb out quickly, and Jake was waiting above with more surprises. "Surrender," Jake called down. "I have no desire to kill you, but I will if I must." "Never," Prince Vex snarled. But the watching crowd could see that he was exhausted from fighting the environment as much as his opponent. Jake's final trap was the most clever. He had noticed that Krillians had trouble with certain frequencies of sound, something about their hearing that made high pitches painful for them. Using the arena's natural acoustics and some carefully placed metal pieces, he created a resonating chamber that amplified sound. When Prince Vex tried to climb out of the pit, Jake struck the metal pieces with his hammer in a specific rhythm. The sound that resulted was like torture to Krillian ears. Prince Vex fell to his knees, covering his head with his hands. "I yield," the prince gasped. "I yield." The arena fell silent. A human had defeated a Krillian warrior using nothing but intelligence and preparation. It should have been impossible. Jake climbed down into the pit and helped Prince Vex to his feet. "You fought with honor," he said. "I respect your courage." This act of mercy after victory impressed even the Krillian soldiers. In their culture, the strong dominated the weak. They had never seen a winner help his defeated opponent. Princess Zara ran down from the viewing box to meet Jake as he exited the arena. Her eyes were bright with tears of relief and something else. Admiration, maybe even the beginning of love. "By ancient law and witnessed combat," she announced to the crowd, "I choose Jake Murphy of Earth as my husband." Emperor Thane looked stunned but relieved. The Krillian warlord looked thoughtful, and Jake looked very tired but pleased. "Now," Jake said quietly to Zara, "we need to talk about what happens next, because defeating one Krillian prince was the easy part." The victory celebration lasted only minutes. Warlord Drac, Prince Vex's father, stood up in the arena and spoke in a voice that carried across the galaxy through the broadcast equipment. The combat was fair and witnessed. But honor does not change reality. The Krillian Dominion still controls this system. Princess Zara may have chosen a new husband, but her world will still bow to our rule. Jake stepped forward, still breathing hard from the fight. "With respect, Warlord, the marriage contract was the only thing preventing you from attacking civilian targets. Now that contract is void." "Exactly," Drac smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Which means we are free to take this world by force. My fleet will begin bombardment in 1 hour. Perhaps watching your cities burn will teach you the price of rejecting Krillian generosity." Emperor Thane looked defeated. He had hoped the trial by combat might somehow change their situation, but now it seemed worse than before. At least with the marriage, some of his people would have lived as slaves. But Jake did not look worried. "Princess, I need to speak with your military commanders immediately." "All of them. What can our military do?" Captain Lisa Chen asked. "We are outnumbered 50 to 1. Numbers only matter if you fight the kind of war your enemy expects," Jake replied. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. Within 30 minutes, every Veltharian military officer was gathered in the palace war room. Jake stood before the holographic display showing the Krillian fleet positions. The enemy ships surrounded the planet in a perfect sphere, ready to attack from all directions. "Your fleet is beautiful," Jake said, studying the Veltharian ship designs. "Fast, elegant, powerful weapons. But you use them like dueling swords when you should be using them like guerrilla fighters." Admiral Ben Parker, the senior Veltharian commander, frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you fight wars like gentlemen. Clean formations, direct engagement, honorable single combat between ships. The Krillians win because they are willing to be more brutal, not because they are better strategists." Jake manipulated the holographic display, showing ship movements. "But what if we stop trying to fight their kind of war? What if we make them fight our kind instead?" "I do not understand," said Admiral Parker. "Look at this." Jake highlighted several Krillian ships. "They keep their formation tight because they expect you to attack in formation too. Their big ships protect their small ones. Their weapons all point outward, toward threats they can see coming." Captain Lisa Chen was beginning to understand. "You want us to attack from inside their formation?" "Better than that. I want to turn their own weapons against them." Jake smiled. "Your teleportation technology can put small teams anywhere in space, right? Even inside enemy ships?" Theoretically, yes, Dr. Morgan said. She had joined the meeting to provide technical support. But it would be suicide. Our people would be surrounded by enemies. Not if they are not planning to fight, Jake explained. What if their job is not to destroy enemy ships but to sabotage them? Plant devices, disable systems, create confusion. He began drawing diagrams on the holographic display. Humans call this guerrilla warfare. You hit the enemy where they are weak, not where they are strong. You make them afraid to trust their own equipment. You turn their size and organization into disadvantages. Admiral Parker studied the plans. This is dishonorable. We do not fight wars by sneaking and sabotage. Your honor will not protect your families when the Krillians start bombing cities, Jake replied firmly. Sometimes survival is more important than tradition. Princess Zara had been listening carefully. What do you need from us? Small teams of volunteers who can use your teleportation technology. Engineers who understand Krillian ship systems. And about 6 hours to prepare some special surprises. What kind of surprises? Asked Dr. Morgan. Jake grinned. The kind that humans are very good at making. We have been fighting wars against stronger enemies for thousands of years. We learned to be creative. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jake worked with Veltharian engineers to modify their equipment for purposes it was never designed for. He showed them how to build devices that looked harmless but could disable entire ship systems. The most important modification was to the Veltharian crystal weapons. Instead of firing destructive beams, Jake helped them create versions that would interfere with Krillian ship computers. The weapons would still look dangerous but would actually be hacking tools. This is brilliant, said engineer Amy Foster as she worked on the modifications. Instead of trying to break through their armor, we attack their electronics. Exactly. Every advanced military depends on computers to coordinate their attacks. Confuse the computers and you confuse the entire fleet. Meanwhile, Princess Zara was selecting volunteers for the mission. She was surprised by how many stepped forward, even after Jake explained how dangerous it would be. Your Highness, said Lieutenant Carl Stone, we would rather die fighting than live as slaves. This human has shown us a way to fight back. We will follow him. Captain Lisa Chen would lead the strike teams. She had studied Jake's plans carefully and understood the strategy better than anyone else. The key is coordination. We hit multiple targets at the same time so they cannot adapt quickly. As the deadline approached, Jake made one final preparation. He recorded a message and asked Princess Zara to broadcast it on all frequencies. People of the galaxy, his voice said, you are about to witness something that the Krillian Dominion does not want you to see. You will see that they can be defeated. You will learn that resistance is possible. Remember what you see today and know that you do not have to live in fear. Warlord Drax's ultimatum came exactly on schedule. Velthars has one final chance to surrender. Submit to Krillian rule now or watch your world burn. Emperor Thane looked at his daughter and her new husband. Zara nodded firmly. She had made her choice. We reject your ultimatum, the Emperor announced. Veltharis will remain free, so be it. Begin the bombardment. But as the Krillian ships moved into attack positions, Jake's plan began to unfold. 20 small Veltharian teams teleported simultaneously to different locations throughout the enemy fleet. Not onto ship bridges or weapon rooms where they would be expected, but into maintenance areas and computer cores. The first sign that something was wrong came when several Krillian ships reported navigation problems. Their computers were receiving conflicting orders. Some ships turned left when they should turn right. Others fired on empty space. What is happening? Warlord Drax demanded from his flagship. Before anyone could answer, more systems began to fail. Ship-to-ship communications went down. Weapon targeting systems locked onto their own escort vessels instead of the planet. Life support systems shut down randomly, then restarted. We are under attack, reported the fleet communications officer. Small teams have infiltrated multiple ships. They are sabotaging our systems. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected any assault ships. Sir, they are using some kind of teleportation technology. They appear inside our ships without warning, plant devices, then disappear before we can stop them. Jake watched the chaos from the Veltharian command center. The enemy fleet was turning into a confused mess as ship after ship reported system failures. This was exactly what he had hoped for. Phase 2, he ordered. Now the real Veltharian fleet attacked, but not in the way the Krillians expected. Instead of charging in formation, the Veltharian ships scattered and attacked individual targets. They used their speed and maneuverability to dart in, fire their modified weapons at Krillian computer systems, then retreat before return fire could hit them. Within minutes, the proud Krillian fleet was in complete disarray. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired randomly. Some vessels lost power completely and began drifting. "This is impossible," Prince Vex said, watching from the palace where he was being held as a prisoner. "Our fleet is the strongest in the galaxy." "Your fleet is designed to fight other fleets," Jake replied. "But we are not fighting your fleet. We are fighting your expectations." The battle was over in less than 2 hours. Most Krillian ships were disabled rather than destroyed. Jake had insisted on this. "Dead enemies cannot surrender," he had explained. "But defeated enemies can become allies." Warlord Drac found himself trapped on a flagship that could barely maintain life support. His mighty invasion force was helpless, scattered across space like broken toys. Princess Zara's voice came over the communication system. "Warlord Drac, we offer you the same choice you gave us. Surrender now or be destroyed." For a long moment there was silence. Then the Krillian warlord's voice came back, full of defeat and something that might have been respect. "We surrender." The surrender of Warlord Drac sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The message had been broadcast on all frequencies, just as Jake had planned. On dozens of worlds that the Krillians had conquered, people watched in amazement as the mighty Dominion fleet was defeated by tactics they had never seen before. But Jake knew the real work was just beginning. Victory in one battle meant nothing if they could not hold on to what they had won. "We need to move quickly," he told Princess Zara, as they stood in the command center. "Other Krillian fleets will come to investigate what happened here. We have maybe a week before they arrive in force." Emperor Thane looked exhausted but hopeful for the first time in months. "What do you suggest?" "We turn your victory into a revolution. Every world that saw this broadcast is now wondering if they can fight back too. We need to give them the tools and knowledge to succeed." Captain Lisa Chen had returned from the battle with her strike teams. All of them had survived, something that seemed impossible when the mission began. "The Krillian prisoners are asking to speak with you, Jake. They say they want to understand how humans fight." This surprised everyone. Krillians were known for their pride and refusal to admit defeat. But something about losing to vastly inferior numbers had shaken their confidence in their own methods. Jake went to meet with Warlord Drac and Prince Vex in their temporary prison. Both Krillians looked confused and frustrated rather than simply angry. "Your tactics make no sense," Prince Vex said immediately. "You won battles without fighting. You disabled our ships instead of destroying them. You showed mercy to defeated enemies. This is not how wars are supposed to work." "Maybe that is why you lost," Jake replied gently. "You expected us to follow your rules, fight your kind of war. When we did something different, you had no way to respond." Warlord Drac studied Jake carefully. "Your people have been fighting the Dominion for months. Our report said you were weak, primitive, barely worth conquering. But if your tactics are this effective, why have we not heard of major defeats before now?" Jake smiled. "Because we were studying you, learning how you think, how you fight, what you expect from your enemies. Every battle taught us something new about Krillian weaknesses. And now you will use that knowledge to destroy us." "No," Jake said, surprising both Krillians. "Now we will use it to change the galaxy. Your empire survives by making other species afraid to fight back. But once they see that resistance is possible, everything changes." Over the next few days, Jake's prediction proved correct. Reports came in from across Krillian space. Rebellions were breaking out on conquered worlds. Some were small and quickly crushed, but others succeeded using modified versions of the tactics they had witnessed at Veltheris. The planet Nexon used guerrilla hit-and-run attacks to disable the Krillian garrison there. The water world of Aquatica created underwater resistance cells that the Krillians could not detect. The mining colonies in the Outer Rim began coordinating their efforts, sharing information and resources. "It is spreading faster than we hoped," reported Admiral Parker. 17 worlds have declared independence from the Dominion in the last 3 days. But success brought new problems. Other Krillian fleets were indeed moving toward Veltheris. 3 separate battle groups, each larger than the force they had already defeated. "We cannot win a straight fight against that many ships," Captain Lisa Chen pointed out. "Even with our new tactics, we will be overwhelmed." Jake had been thinking about this problem since their victory. "Then we do not fight them at all. We make them fight each other." "What do you mean?" "The Krillian Dominion rules by fear and strength. But what happens when that fear is broken? What happens when Krillian commanders start doubting their own methods? He explained his new plan to the War Council. It was even more ambitious than the first battle, requiring coordination across multiple star systems. You want to turn the Krillians against each other? Princess Zara asked. I want to show them that there are different ways to live. Some of their commanders are already questioning the old methods. Prince Vex and his father have been asking me about human culture, about why we fight the way we do. This was true. The Krillian prisoners had become unexpectedly interested in learning about Earth and human history. They seemed fascinated by the idea of cooperation instead of domination. Perhaps, Jake continued, some Krillians are tired of being conquerors. Perhaps they would prefer to be partners. The plan that emerged was unlike anything attempted before in galactic history. Instead of preparing for battle, the Veltharians began broadcasting messages to the approaching Krillian fleets. The messages contained detailed information about human military tactics, cultural values, and philosophy. More importantly, they included testimony from Warlord Drac and Prince Vex. The former enemies spoke about their experiences, about learning to see war differently, about the possibility of peace between species. I spent my life believing that only the strong deserve to survive, Prince Vex said in one broadcast, but this human showed me that intelligence can be stronger than claws, that mercy can be more powerful than cruelty. I do not know if I can change, but I want to try. The effect on the approaching Krillian fleets was dramatic. Ship commanders began questioning their orders. Soldiers asked why they were fighting against species that offered cooperation instead of slavery. When the first Krillian battle group arrived at Veltharis, something unprecedented happened. Half the fleet requested permission to land and speak with Jake directly. The other half attacked, but without coordination or enthusiasm. The battle was brief and decisive. Krillian ships that still wanted to fight found themselves outnumbered by their own former allies. Within hours, the second Krillian fleet had either surrendered or joined the growing revolution. By the time the third fleet arrived, the news had spread throughout the galaxy. The Krillian Dominion was splitting apart. Some commanders remained loyal to the old ways, but others had embraced the possibility of change. A month later, Jake and Princess Zara held their actual wedding ceremony. It was nothing like the political spectacle that had been planned with Prince Vex. Instead, it was attended by representatives from dozens of species, including former Krillian enemies who had become allies. Emperor Thane performed the ceremony using ancient Veltharian traditions that celebrated the joining of different peoples. The words spoke of unity, understanding, and hope for the future. Do you, Princess Zara of Veltharis, take Jake Murphy of Earth as your husband, to stand together against all challenges, to learn from each other's wisdom, and to build a better tomorrow for all peoples? I do, Zara replied, looking into Jake's eyes with love and admiration. Do you, Jake Murphy of Earth, take Princess Zara of Veltharis as your wife, to stand together against all challenges, to learn from each other's wisdom, and to build a better tomorrow for all peoples? I do, Jake said firmly. As they exchanged rings made from Veltharian crystal and earth metals, the galaxy watched through broadcast signals that now carried messages of hope instead of conquest. In the audience, Warlord Drac sat next to his son, Prince Vex. Both former enemies wore simple clothes instead of armor. They were learning to be diplomats instead of warriors, though the change was not easy. Father, Prince Vex whispered during the ceremony, do you think we can really change? Can the Krillian people learn to live differently? I do not know, my son, Drac replied quietly. But this human has shown us that change is possible. Perhaps that is enough to begin with. After the ceremony, Jake and Zara stood together on the palace balcony, looking up at the stars. The night sky was full of ships from many worlds, all working together to build something new. What happens now? Zara asked. Now we do the hard work, Jake replied. Winning battles is easy compared to building lasting peace. But I think we have a chance. We? Jake smiled and took her hand. Humans have a saying, no one succeeds alone. I could not have done any of this without you. Without your people, even without our former enemies who chose to change. Zara squeezed his hand. My people have another saying. The greatest victories are won not by conquering others, but by conquering fear itself. Together they watched the stars and planned for a future where strength came from cooperation, where different species could learn from each other instead of fighting, and where a human and an alien princess could build something better than either could create alone. The galaxy was changing, one world at a time, one heart at a time. And it all began when a princess was forced to marry, and then she saw her groom, a human who knew how to turn impossible odds into victory.